Alright, so most of the theories and mysteries surrounding Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 have already been kicked around and explained by a ton of people. However, there's one mystery that might be semi-solved, and it feels like nobody's really talking about it. Remember the whole lost girl thing? Well, I think I've cracked it. She's not so lost anymore, or something like that. This is also going to be a super accessible breakdown, whether you're new to Deltarune or feel like you last played it 80 years ago. I'm planning to explain everything in detail so you won't miss a beat and can follow along perfectly. So get comfy, grab your shadow mantle, and join me as we explore the theory that let's start from the very beginning. Deltarune stars Chris, who lives with their mother Toriel. Asgore's in the picture too, but he and Toriel are divorced. Other key players are Susie and Ralsei. Susie is Chris's classmate, and Ralsei comes from the Dark Worlds, acting as a sort of guide and prophet. Then we have Noelle, a girl from Chris's hometown and a childhood friend. Noelle's family includes her mother, the mayor, her father, who's hospitalized, more on that later, and her sister, DESS. But where is DESS? Not a single pixel of her appears in the game. She's only mentioned in a few easily missed lines of dialogue. It's been heavily implied that DESS is a nickname, and her full name might be December, fitting the holiday family's super festive theme. So what do we actually know about her? Most of the details about DESS came out during a charity event called the Spamton Sweepstakes. Now, who's Spamton? He pops up in Chapter 2 in all sorts of ways, as an enemy, an ally, a vendor, and even a secret boss. His backstory is incredibly deep, enough for its own dedicated video, but long story short, Spamton was the top salesman around thanks to help from someone who spoke to him through a phone. One day though, the phone stopped ringing. Spamton's sales plummeted, he was forgotten by the other salesmen, and eventually fell into his own pit of ambition, ending up alone in the garbage dump. His name itself is a nod to spam email, which perfectly explains his mannerisms and speech. In the game, he's constantly offering shady deals, some involving big shot money. So naturally, he was the perfect face for a donation campaign. But this is Toby Fox we're talking about. Of course, he was going to use the Spamton sweepstakes page to hide more lore. Among the various hidden links, there's one specific blog titled Welcome to Holiday Girl 1225's Game Secrets, Glitches, and Theories blog. If you haven't guessed, this blog is clearly Noelle's. The Christmas theme is a dead giveaway. Am I just pulling this out of thin air? Nope. In Chapter 2, there are more connections between Noelle and Christmas. For instance, in Queen's Mansion, oh yeah, there's a queen, specifically during the light puzzle section with Birdly. Yup, Birdly is Noelle's childhood friend. He tells us how they both entered a spelling bee when they were little. When it was their turn to spell the word December, Birdly nailed it, but Noelle struggled to even get out the initial D. This might be less about a specific traumatic event in December, and more related to the absence of her sister, DESS, whose full name is speculated to be December. Furthermore, in one part of the cyber world, we have to clear paths for Noelle to help us get past electric barriers. While we step on normal tiles, she steps on tiles that, letter by letter, spell out December. This is significant because the cyber world's dark world was formed based on the people present and who had previously logged into the computer lab's computers. That's why we find references to rooms belonging to Birdly, Jockington, Caddy, and even Asriel from his student days in hometown. Noelle's room in this dark world is based on her online life. And notably, a calendar in her room only marks December 25th, Christmas Day, a holiday. This strengthens the idea that Noelle deeply misses DESS and might be constantly searching December holiday online, hoping for news about her, even if she only gets results about the festive season. Going back to Noelle's blog, we find several entries. In one, Noelle mentions playing with Chris, Asriel, Chris's brother, and DESS when they were kids. This implies Chris also knows DESS, but their feelings on the matter are unknown. So Noelle's sister is nowhere to be seen in the game, which is why people say she's missing. Could I just say yes and move on? Sure, but there are many more reasons for this belief. Whenever you finish a chapter, you can explore hometown and talk to the characters. There's a bar, a hospital where Noelle's dad is, several apartments, and even a supermarket. But the two locations we're most interested in are the police station and the bunker. At the police station, a cutscene plays where Undyne accidentally releases all the locked up dogs. During this moment, we can interact with a poster about a disappearance. This text implies several things, like Asgore used to be a police officer, but resigned, most likely because of the missing girl case. And then there's the bunker, a completely silent area found in the southernmost part of Hometown. In Chapter 1, you can't interact with it, but in Chapter 2, a cutscene occurs where Susie kicks in the door and the other two characters just bolt out of there after muttering something about Chris. So you kinda get the feeling something went down here. Probably tied to those little adventures Chris, Asriel, Noelle, and DESS used to get up to. It might seem like we're out of clues, but believe me, in Deltarune, even the smallest pixel can be a spoiler. It turns out, if you go to Deltarune.com/DESS, you'll find a red guitar in the darkness. Clicking on the guitar plays a song. The audio file is named FindHer.ogg. But there's something even weirder. If you try to access Deltarune.com/December, the page shows an error saying it doesn't exist. This might seem normal, but what's interesting is that if you type in any other random word at the end of the Deltarune URL that Toby Fox hasn't set up, you'll see the annoying dog sleeping. This happens with any combination of letters, even insults or gibberish. The fact that December is the only word that produces a specific error instead of the annoying dog suggests it's an intentional omission by Toby Fox, another clue about that word's importance. When Chapter 1 was released, a hidden message was found in the game's code, seemingly from someone.
Where am I? Hello? Anyone? Is anyone out there? Anyone? Anybody? Can anyone hear me? It's dark. It's so dark. Someone? Anybody? If you can hear me, say something. Please.
The curious thing is, this monologue continued when Chapter 2 was released.
Can nobody hear me? Is that it? I guess not. To be honest, I'm not even sure I can hear myself. It's so quiet here. And yet, sometimes, I swear I hear something. Something like scratching?
What's truly fascinating is that these dialogues aren't just hidden, they're unused. In the code, these lines are labeled Unused 0 through Unused 9, meaning this monologue was intended to be implemented at some point. Or was it? Toby Fox wants us to think these dialogues were meant to be used normally. However, we know that Deltarune is more than just a game. It's an experiment, a survey program. You'd only know this if you downloaded Chapter 1 from the game's website back in the day, not Steam, I think, as a window pops up saying, "You will accept everything that will happen from now on." This implies that someone else, and many suspect Gaster is behind this, is manipulating everything and doesn't want us to know about DESS. In fact, when talking about DESS, it's almost impossible not to mention Gaster. Traces of him are all over things related to her and Deltarune in general. Some believe it's unlikely DESS is in the traditional dark world, precisely because if these code messages are from her, her presence would be felt from the very first chapter, almost omnisciently, even in chapters where she's not physically present. It's an interesting idea suggesting DESS might be trapped in a more abstract space, perhaps between the survey program and the game itself. Wait a minute. Am I implying these monologues are DESS trying to communicate with us? Absolutely. You're probably thinking, but a casual player would never stumble upon this stuff. Only the really dedicated community uncovers this stuff. And you'd be right, but what if I told you that in the game itself, similar to the code, there's a monologue from someone asking for help? We have to go back to Spamton, literally. In Chapter 2, we can talk to Spamton in the garbage area where we learn more about his story and personality. What might go unnoticed is the plea for help I'm talking about.
What are you afraid of? According to Encyclopedia of Being Afraid, there's nothing to fear except...
Can anyone hear me? Help!
Huh? What? No, I didn't hear anything just now! But it sounded like they were talking to you.
You probably noticed Spamton's eyes filling with static accompanied by a light drizzle effect. What does this static symbolize? Well, back to the Deltarune web links, one of them takes us to a TV screen very similar to the one in Chris's house, but it's all crossed out. I don't want to dive too deep into what's here. What I want you to see is how when I click the TV, it takes me to another page with more static. If we keep scrolling down, we find a hidden message. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And the page title is You Are Too Early. The end of chapter 2 involves Chris creating a dark fountain in his own house, while the TV fills with static and forms a smile. So all this means one thing. Chapter 3, along with chapter 4, are still being formed. That's why we're too early. The static represents the development of the new Dark World. Meanwhile, DESS is trying to communicate with us through Spamton, which is why we see static in his eyes. But why Spamton? It seems both characters, including Noelle, have a connection. You see, Noelle mentions in her blog a game called Cat Pedders 2, where cats hatch from eggs. She talks about a very strange egg she received that day. However, she got scared because she'd never seen anything like it and thought it might be a virus. She rushed to delete it, but it was impossible. The egg just wouldn't budge. Noelle didn't want to play anymore. She was scared, thinking it was something that could harm her. But when she got older, she decided to run the game again. The egg was still there, unhatched. She decided to treat it like any other pet, giving it baths and affection. But one day, when she turned on her console, the egg was simply gone. A message appeared on her screen, left home due to happiness, when the normal message is, pets named left home due to sadness. It's interesting because Spamton has a very strong connection to an item called pipus, which, if it wasn't obvious enough already, are shaped like inverted eggs. This means Spamton has an emotional attachment or a very good relationship with Noelle, as she was the only one who treated him the way he wanted to be treated. Therefore, it makes sense that DESS would manifest through this character to try to ask for help from anyone around. By the way, you can actually play that cat game. It's found on one of the hidden pages. There's a chance to get a super special cat with wings and a halo. If you click on it, you get 1000 points, and a window briefly appears that looks a lot like a cathedral. If you also click on that window, you end up here, a full page of windows, each leading to a different page. And to cap off this whole headache, there's another link accessible relatively easily from Spamton's charity page. This is the link. When you enter, you'll see a page titled, "But What If I Could?" alongside an image of a chair with a cloak on it. Clicking the chair distorts it, and the page title changes to "Be Darker Than Dark." This relates to the dark fountains, implying that the stronger they become, the more they distort objects around them. It could also be a reference to what was mentioned in chapter 2 before sealing the fountain, about creating a dark fountain within a dark world, which would make sense. And sorry for not explaining earlier, but dark fountains are created by a lightener, like Chris, Susie, or Noelle, and an off-determination. These fountains are what shape the dark worlds, altering all the objects that make up the room, because so far we haven't seen any dark worlds form outdoors. And you know what this whole objects getting altered thing reminds me of? The trailer Nintendo dropped a few days ago. In the trailer shown during this year's Nintendo Direct, for a few seconds we saw a very peculiar scene where Chris and Susie were climbing some walls, and in the background there are stained glass windows very reminiscent of Hometown's Cathedral. And they're the exact same windows seen on the cat game page. This pretty much confirms chapter 4 will be set in the church. But that's not all, we see a lot more. The most striking thing is that the protagonists don't have their usual dark world colors, and this can only mean one thing. The dark fountain in that world is much stronger than previous ones, managing to alter our hero's appearance even more than usual fountains. So to wrap up the theory, DESS is in the dark world within the cathedral, where the darkness is much more powerful than usual, making it almost impossible for her to even hear herself. She's trying to communicate with our heroes using somewhat unconventional methods, and it's only a matter of time before we eventually find Noelle's sister. The idea of being darker than dark could even refer to creating a dark world within a dark world, something Rossi warned against when Burley tried to create one, and which could be a step towards the Roaring. There are more details I didn't mention, like Noelle's father planning to attend the next church service, likely hinting he'll be part of chapter 4, thus putting a strong focus on Noelle's family. So what did you think of all this? Do you think I'm crazy? Or do you agree with what I've laid out? Let me know in the comments, I always read them.